Thanks, William. Thanks for having me here today. It's actually quite good. I don't regularly get to speak in Singapore, so unless I make the event myself, so this is actually quite a good to actually explore the market here in Singapore. Singapore, to me, has a special place in my heart. It's a good hub for Asia, one of the most exciting places in the world to do business right now. You're all privileged to this opportunities, which I'm going to show you later, right here in Singapore. But what I really want to talk about is an opinion which I've been building, and some of you may have seen this in my blog in recent days, is that the modern bank, and I mean everything from Citigroup down to your local bank, is, to me, it got to a point of being what I call blind and dependent. They can no longer see the changes which Mel just outlines in the fast-pacing world. They're not paying attention to them. One of those things I keep saying is, I've been speaking to banks for 10 years about their response to PayPal. PayPal's 12th birthday was 2 months ago. Okay, 12 years and still no response. The idea of dependency as well, coming up with excuses around, my regulator hasn't told me what to do. Compliance says I can't do it. There's no case for mobile. There's no case for the underbanked. It's around becoming an organisation of essentially blind dependence. So I'm actually going to take you through a story of why this is so significant, why this could potentially be one of the largest tipping points in the financial industry, basically in the last couple of centuries. And to help me tell that story, I've got a few characters. Our first one here is Isaac Lim. Isaac Lim was born the 29th of June, 2007. Now, if anyone in the room can tell me the significance of that date. Heard it? He's born the same day as the iPhone. The iPhone, remember, has not been around very long, but it is one of the most significant leap forwards in technology that's affected banking in the last 10 years. Now, Isaac is born into a world where he will never, ever see Encyclopedia Britannica. Encyclopedia Britannica in publication in print for 244 years, longer than most of your banks, now is no longer printed. He will never see a product catalogue. Product catalogues are being thrown out the door from your retailers, from your brands. They're just noise now in your junk mail. In fact, it's actually gotten to the point now people check their email more than they check their mailbox. He's born into a he'll never go to a peep show because there's better digital alternatives. He'll never use a paper classifieds because Craigslist is now one of the biggest classifieds in the world. He'll probably never even know what the Yellow Pages is or a landline. Landlines globally are decreasing at such rapid rates that telcos are like, what do I do? This is our core business. There's this new technology that came out a little while ago, the fax machine. He probably doesn't know what a fax machine is. He'll probably never use one. But then some really compelling ones which will touch to your heart. He'll never use an optical disc. He'll never have a DVD, a CD in his life, ever. He'll never use cabled networking. This is like a 10, 15-year-old technology that he'll never use. He'll never go to a bookstore, and he'll never go to a movie rental place. These businesses are now dead. Why? Because they have a historical dependency on bricks and mortar distribution. The idea that you would actually go to somewhere to do something, as Mel just mentioned. Banking and various industries are now being disintermediated by the idea of digital distribution. Who else do we know that uses bricks and mortar? The industry we have here today. The reality is that the products that banks distribute today have no physical tangibility and are susceptible to digital disintermediation. There is nothing stopping right now changing the distribution of money and financial products to a completely digital world. Okay, so this idea that branches are going to play an important role, that the baby boomers are going to be around going to keep branches alive for the next 20 years, is actually very naive. Because if you keep believing that way, you're going to go the same way these guys went. Out of business. Borders, the largest seller of books in the world for nearly 10 years. Out of business today. Interesting statistic, and unfortunately there's not many stats on Asian markets yet, but 88% of the Swedish market never went to a bank branch in 2011. Never went. In fact, in a lot of cases, they choose alternative providers to avoid going to a bank branch. Again, back to our little Isaac. He will never write a check. Never ever will he write a check. It's a hard concept to grasp. My business partner Brett continually tells the story of his 11-year-old daughter Hannah. Brett's lived in 3 cities. He's lived in Dubai, Hong Kong, and now New York. Hannah's best friend lives in Dubai. On her best friend's birthday, Brett goes to Hannah, Hannah, what would you like to do for, let's say it's Chloe's birthday? She goes, let's send her some money. And so Brett goes to Hannah, how would you like to do that? Well, it's easy, Daddy, we'll just email it or SMS it. And Brett goes to her, how about this? Why don't we take a $100 bill? We'll go down to the bank. They'll exchange it for a piece of paper with Chloe's name on it. We'll put it in an envelope, put it in the post, send it across to Dubai. She'll go to her bank and they'll give her $100 at her end. Now, we all know what I'm describing. I'm describing a check. Hannah's response was, no, Daddy, that'll never work. Who would do that? So back to Isaac. Very important statistic. Globally recognised that every consumer in the world chooses their primary banking relationship between the ages of 16 to 18 and overwhelmingly never changes that in their life. Little Isaac here will choose his bank in 2023. Are you ready to bank him, knowing all those things he has no idea about? No checks, no branches. His service choice will be based on those premises because he doesn't understand anything else. Here's his little buddy, Timmy. Born the 21st of November in 2000. Anyone know the significance of this date? No? The very first smartphone, the Nokia communicator. Okay, again, hasn't been around very long. Only 12 years have we been able to do enriched kind of applications on a mobile device. But they have changed our world completely in just 12 years. Timmy will choose his primary bank in the year 2017. Other than that, he's actually also born the same day as PayPal. A local family here, 2 children, Ethan and Isabel. First of all, let's have a look at Ethan. Ethan is born the 10th of November, 2010. Happens to be the same day as the iPod. Now this iPod looks pretty old these days, doesn't it? But it's only 11 years old. Ethan will choose his primary banking relationship for life in 2017. That's just 5 years away. His big sister is born the same day as Google, the very company we're in right today. And she will choose her bank in just 2 years' time. And she has very similar expectations of services and so forth of growing up in a world with Google around. Google is an intrinsic expectation of service providers that drives her world. Just like Facebook does for a lot of people, the idea of having a smartphone, mobile internet, these shape these people's minds of how they evaluate and expect their service providers to act. So let's take back again. Let's take some good market trends around where these kids are growing up and what's shaped where they are today. There's no doubt in the last 10 years consumers have got digital. I can almost say, unequivocally, every one of you in this room has a digital device in your pocket today. Your children probably do as well. Smartphones are now penetrating down to as low as 12 and 13-year-olds. My 18-year-old son is iPad proficient. This is the world we grew up in now. His handwriting may be terrible, but he knows how to get around to Angry Birds. It's very, very simple, different dramatically changes. A huge, huge shift, and this is one of the things that banks rarely get. Opinion has been democratized. Forget that it's done by Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. Opinion has been democratized to levels which will amaze people. I'll give you an example, the most in-your-face example in the world. Egypt, after decades, was essentially ruled by an autocratic leader, a leader that was unstoppable. Yet at the start of last year, in a population of 82 million people, 12,000 Twitter accounts overthrew the government. That's where it started. A week before the Arab Spring, there was only 12,000 Twitter accounts in Egypt. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are aware how large Twitter penetration is in the G20 nations. Other than China, which controls things, or even Saudi Arabia, there is not a single nation in the world that is safe in the exact same scenario. There is more Twitter followers in every G20 nation than the amount of votes it took to win the last election. That's a significant change in how opinion gets spread. Ideas spread at such pace that days are such a long time. In a place where banks usually take about 30 to 60 days to do an external comms process. And that just won't suffice in a world that is this fast. And not only that opinion is democratized in such a diverse range of platforms. Now, everyone talks about LinkedIn and Facebook, but who knows all of these platforms? These are all potential platforms where your brands are spoken about, either positively or negatively, shared, experiences shared, videoed, recorded, documented, over and over and over again. Okay? Basically, we have right now the most documented time in history. The amount of data we produce on a daily basis is a plethora higher than what we were doing 10 years ago. And that includes what people think, act, do with your companies today. Some fascinating data is, I won't go through all these statistics here, but YouTube, one of Google's businesses, in just 1 minute on YouTube, 30 hours of video is viewed. That means, you do your maths, how many concurrent videos are currently being watched in parallel on YouTube? 6 million people log on to Facebook in a minute. These are platforms for interactions at scales that, they are far beyond most of the quantums we've seen in the past. The reality is the people we talk about grow up in a world where these are their service providers. These are their Blockbuster and Borders. Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, iTunes Store, Spotify. New distribution models for essentially intangible goods and services are now dominating the world. iTunes is the largest seller of music today in the world by a long, long way. Amazon, the largest seller of books by a long, long way. And they've actually been forward-thinking enough to realize they need to pivot as well, because they have to go beyond just the digital store. They have to go to digital distribution as well. So they've got businesses like Kindle and ebooks now coming out, which will actually take it to the next level where the actual written material you buy in a book will no longer be physically sent to you. You'll get it digitally on your iPad, your Kindle, your Nook, your whatever device you have in your life. But one of the most important things, and I think Mel and William both touched on this before, is modality shift. The idea is that in a digitally distributed world, with a device this powerful in your pocket, anything is possible. Anything. Most people's service expectation today is that their first point of call for a Google search is their pocket. Their first point of call to find a restaurant is their pocket. Think about all those scenarios in your everyday life today, which change the way you expect service providers to do. For instance, we are still not at a level where if you need a new bank account or a credit card, can I do that in my pocket yet? Unfortunately, no. Customer acquisition on the mobile device is not yet possible. We still need to look at some of the traditional distribution models in the financial services world. So let's do a self-reflective exercise. This is banks. This is actually raise your hand. Who works for a bank here? So look in the mirror. This is what banks look like. The reality is banks really are just very mature gentlemen's clubs that have been around for 200 years. They're trusted to hold your money and distribute that in controlled economic ways. Except when they have a financial crisis and lose on these leveraged lending and so forth. But banks don't look very dissimilar to this. In fact, you could go to any board in the world and it would add some colour and maybe some new interior decorating. Your bank probably looks like this. What does that mean? How many of you still carry around a leather pouch full of gold coins? Not many people. How many people still carry around a wad of cash? And if you're in Vietnam, this would be hard to carry around even $100 US. Lastly is, how many of you carry around a checkbook? These are evolutions of money that we've already gone through, that have already changed the banking industry massively. The shift from gold coins to cash, from cash to checks. We've seen plastic in the last couple of decades as well, the idea of cards. The reality is today's money is digital. Over 99% of all financial transactions in the world are nothing more than ones and zeros passed through an electronic world. Very few, and unless you go to an emerging market, does it go beyond just the passing of ones and zeros. And in that digital world, something happened. With a democratized opinion, with the ability to say that, okay, if the bank pisses me off, I actually now have an avenue to share that with my friends, tell people.